Hello and welcome back to Paranormal NL Podcast, located in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. That's PNL Podcast for short. I'm your host and founder, Jen Noseworthy. Thank you for tuning in to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM on that Gulf. For tonight's uncomfortable Christmas special on UPRN segment number 58, I've got a special guest tonight waiting backstage from Indiana, USA, who I'll bring on shortly. Now it's time to grab your favorite Christmassy drink, maybe a few Christmas cookies that Nan baked, and get cozy by that fireplace for the show tonight. Paranormal NL Podcast is sponsored by the Bog Team. It's a boots-on-the-ground Bog Team doing historical paranormal investigations in Newfoundland, Canada. Follow PNL Podcast and the Bog Team on their link tree at Paranormal NL Podcast. Smash those subscribe buttons. Tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on UPRN for PNL Podcast for the YouTube and Facebook live chat watch party. PNL Podcast believes in supporting international paranormal networking and highlighting global paranormal people, places, and things. Now, let's get on with the show tonight. I hope I can pronounce his last name right. Here we go. All the way from Indiana, we've got Erick Szilagyi. I hope I pronounced that right, Erick. Let me pull you up on the stage there, bro. There he is, Erick. Welcome. Thank you for being on the show tonight. Oh, tell me, welcome. Yeah, pronounce your name properly for me, please. Szilagyi. There, everybody say that. Szilagyi.
Right, good job, guys.
Erick, listen, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you're with the Uncomfortable Podcast. You've been doing it now for several seasons. Tell me a little bit about yourself and what got you into it.
Life got me into it. It's been 4 years, probably a little over 4 years now that I've actually been doing the show.
4 years. Yep.
And, I don't know what, 212 episodes, I think, maybe 320 hours worth of content. My shows go anywhere from, very few one-offs that are only about a half hour, 40 minutes to like an average, it runs probably closer to 90 minutes. I've had some that run 2.5 hours. I had one recently back in May with Jeff Meldrum, who passed away here suddenly.
Yes, and Jane just passed away not too long ago. This is a pre-recorded show, so yeah, we lost another, big heavy hitter.
And his episode went almost 3 hours. So
wow.
It's just kind of all over the place. And, I grew up with a really healthy fascination with high strangeness, I guess, to encompass it all. I was obsessed with UFOs when I was 5 years old. And I can pinpoint that because I know in 1970, when I was 5, a movie came out at the theaters here in America. I don't know if it did there. Chariots of the Gods. And it was a pseudo documentary.
I love that. I've got that book. Yes.
Yep. Book by Eric Van Daniken.
Tell folks listening about Eric Van Daniken. Eric, for people who don't know who he is.
He's just been a prolific writer about he's very closely associated with Ancient Aliens, the program on television. They bring him up an awful lot, and he's just got some unique views on the origins of humanity and its relation to extraterrestrials. So I was obsessed with UFOs at the age of 5. 1977 rolls around. That puts me at 12. And I see a photograph of Patty, the Patterson-Gimlin film, still in a book that we had at our grade school. That was half the book was about Bigfoot, and the back half of the book was about the Loch Ness Monster. And that was the first time I saw the photo of it. And then shortly after that, In Search Of, the television program. I got to see the 56 seconds of film footage that Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson took of Patty actually walking across Bluff Creek. And I mean, at that point, I was hooked.
About that, like when you were talking to Jeff, you said you were talking to him for about like 2 hours. Did you all get into that?
Almost 3 hours.
Yeah. Did he get into that?
He was associated with a couple of other gentlemen. I can't, right off the top of my head, I can't remember their names. But most recently, in about the last 3 years, I would say, he was involved with two other gentlemen who one of them was a special effects makeup artist, and then Jeff, he was a part of it. And then there was another gentleman who had, together, the three of them had collected, I believe 26 roughly different copies of the Patterson Gimlin film. 26. Wow. Yep. They were all of various degrees of degradation. You know, there were some better copies, some not so great copies, some that might have a second or two more, some that had a second or two less, some that had scratches in it, some that didn't. Right. And the third gentleman was tasked with taking all those 26 different versions of the Patterson Gimlin film, collecting them, putting them together, and stabilizing them with the most state-of-the-art stabilization techniques, the best computer graphics and everything that can be attributed to an old film like that. And then he used some sort of an AI that was able to go in and clarify the picture even more, stabilize it even better, and on individual cells of the film where there were dust that scratched the negative or scratches from being projected, it was able to replace that imagery and make it perfect again. So the end result was the full 56 seconds of Patty walking across the dry creek bed in Bluff Creek, but it is the highest quality.
And that's where you can see the defined definition in the muscles, in the back of the leg, and the chest, breast, shall we say? That's what people are saying, right?
And it's always been a standing thing. I mean, my kids grew up with me. My son and my daughter grew up with me, involved in all this stuff, and both of them are believers to some varying degrees. My son has always been a believer in Bigfoot, but he's like, the biggest problem for him was with that particular film was you never see the toes or the foot really bend as good as that supposed costume is. You never really saw the flexation in the toes or the foot. In the new film, you do. Now, my question is, you mentioned AI. Do you think that they added that with I had conversations with Jeff and the third guy, and I can't remember his name, about
You'll remember it later tonight in bed.
I will. About it. And the use of AI was used only in that it was used for repair. So there was nothing added to any of the footage. There was nothing added to anything that it put in the film was something that they would have seen in the previous film strips. So, a movie is made of, a bunch of little cells that just they change slightly with each one. And then if you play it at the right speed, it gives you the appearance of motion, right?
I mean, we could do a whole show on AI and how, people could be so confused at what they're looking at, like this Atlas thing,
I think they both adequately answered the question for me that nothing had been added that wasn't supposed to be there.
Okay. Yeah. Now, he had a lot of footprints and stuff. Did he show you some of those while he was talking to you?
We didn't cover those prints during the interview. I've had the pleasure of speaking with Meldrum in person,
Right.
at different conferences, and there he had several of his more famous prints. I actually own a couple of them.
Really?
This one right here behind me is
Okay, hold on. Let me
actually
take this
Patty.
off the stage so we can see it. Where? Point at it?
Right here above my head, behind
Okay,
me.
there it
That
is.
one is actually Patty from Bob Gimlin's cast that was taken at Bluff Creek.
Okay.
And then the one below my other shoulder here,
Right.
that one is actually signed by Jeff Meldrum on the back of it.
Can you pick that up and show us? Or no?
It's attached to the wall.
Oh, okay.
So that particular track behind me on the lower wall, that's the Hereford track. That was from Grays Harbor, Washington, out on the West Coast. 1981, I believe. Sheriff Hereford was the one that found the tracks, led people to it, and consequently, I forget the number of different prints that they had, but there were a significant number of tracks, and they were actually able to cast multiple casts of the same. It's the same individual. I actually own a left and right foot cast
Of that individual.
individual, and they were able to
Interesting.
track that individual. It was well over a mile.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's interesting stuff. And, like when you hold one of these casts in your hands, it's difficult to, well, here, hang on a second. I do have one I can.
Okay, let me take this off stage.
So this is actually the other individual.
Okay.
All right.
Bring it in a bit closer so we can see up close. Wow.
So the problem with this, and it's a problem that I'm working on personally, so I can show people with a little
There's
bit.
no claws on that. Obviously, it's not a bear, because you know how people will be like, "Oh, that's a bear." Blah blah. No, that ain't no bear. And look at the middle. You can see.
And the toe stems are clearly visible.
Yes.
After
and
the
look. Yeah, bring your hand down towards the middle. You can see the pads that like the feet, like the
right through here.
Yes, the definition. Now, people are saying, "Oh, is it a rubber foot?" Come on.
Well, they make great arguments, and you had Les Stroud, Survivor Man, hails from Canada, British Columbia, I think.
Yes.
He did Bigfoot or Survivor Man Bigfoot, which was I think there was a movie or a documentary, and then he did an entire series based on that. And he actually went to some areas where Bigfoot prints have been found, and he cast some, and he took them to Jeff Meldrum, who was very interested in them, and he looked at them and he studied them, and but Les was not able to pass that by Jeff Meldrum.
What do you mean?
He was not. Jeff was like, it looked suspiciously similar to. He picked up on it that it was a fake.
Oh, okay.
So I mean,
Jeff knows his stuff, right?
That lends some credibility to the work that Meldrum was doing.
Yes.
But he took, I think at the time, was $10,000 and gave it to a special effects artist who went and created a set of feet.
Jeff did?
No, Les Stroud did.
Oh, Les. Okay, yeah.
And then it was his attempt to take those feet and to put himself on stilts that were high enough that would replicate the length of stride that many of these tracks that are found in the wild, to replicate it.
Wouldn't replicate the weight, though, would it?
It wouldn't replicate the weight. And it was, for the most part, a $10,000 utter failure. They were not able to replicate. They weren't able to get one, and they were walking in snow. and they were not able to get one to make it look like it could have been passable as real. So, I mean, does that mean that it's not possible? Absolutely not. But does it make it more unlikely? The fact that somebody had to spend $10,000 to get a pair of rubber feet made and still not be able to recreate what, you know, we've obviously found in the wild. So is that just somebody with a big foot? I mean, possible.
Yeah, but it still wouldn't account for the pushing down into, like, if you get the print in mud or something like that along a riverbank.
The weight.
Right.
You know, I had the pleasure of, or I guess you'd say the pleasure. I've had the opportunity to stand very close to Shaquille O'Neal.
Okay.
It was before he retired. He was in the prime of his life. He was 7'2". I'm 5'9.5" on a good day. So to stand next to somebody, a living being that is 7'2" and capable of doing everything and anything I can do, on top of being incredibly athletic, it is staggering to see somebody that is at that height. It is almost unreal, because not only is he 7 foot tall, but he is a mass of a human being. He's not a beanpole. He's not skin and bones.
Well, you know, throughout history, there have been a lot of humans who've had pituitary gland disorders. Sure. Yeah. And they grew, tall, like giants, shall we say. There's been several giants throughout history. Yep. And why do they always disappear when we find quote unquote giant bones to the Smithsonian, right?
Right.
So anybody else in his family that tall? I don't know much about his family.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
But like you say, a structure that tall and big.
Just to take that and set him apart from everybody else. I mean, my son's 6'4".
Okay.
He's a big dude.
Yeah.
He makes me look small. But compared to a Shaquille O'Neal, I mean, and I guess the reason I'm bringing that up is just to try to put into perspective that the majority of eyewitness accounts that are tangible accounts that seem to be reported by upstanding, not crazy, just normal people who don't stand to gain anything by reporting this, is that most of the individuals that are cited are estimated to be in the 7 to 8 foot range.
Tall, very tall.
And just, you can go to a zoo and see a gorilla that is.
Yeah, I've seen lots of silverbacks, and they don't, even when they stand up, they're not that tall. I mean, if they stretch their arms out or something, maybe, but
sure. But yeah, even at 5 foot tall, but the amount of mass that they carry on that skeleton, right, is significantly larger than what a normal human being is, and they're incredibly strong.
Yeah, they can rip you apart. Just like a chimp could, even though they're small.
Yeah. So if you extrapolate that to a 7 or 8 foot tall version of a silverback gorilla, what do you have? You have something that has a conical head. You have something that has.
Have you talked much about military experiments, and could this be something that got escaped? We talk about high strangeness. That could be, down that rabbit hole of, I'm sure people had these discussions. Could it be a military super soldier or something that escaped?
I think that's a bunch of hokey bunk.
And why do all the military people know where they live, and why is there helicopters all the time?
Well, they make good stories, don't they?
They do, yeah.
It makes good stories.
So
I'm not taking anything away from the fact that, I think there is you're in Canada.
Yep.
I know that you guys have your own set of issues when it comes to the running of your country. If you watch any news at all, you will notice that we have some problems of our own. We've been dealing with a lack of disclosure about the UFO topic.
Disclosure is coming soon, though.
Is it though?
It is.
Is it though? Because here's what I want to say about that. And I may come off sounding very opinionated.
No, go for it.
I think that's having been alive for 60 years and having bought into a lot of things for a lot of years. And then all of a sudden there's kind of a wake up moment here and there where you're like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. But, so here in the States, we have a handful, a pool of people that are in the disclosure arena. All right. You got Dr. Stephen Greer, you got Jeremy Corbell, you've got George Knapp, you've got these fairly recent whistleblowers. You got Commander Fravor, David Grush. You have all these people coming forward and testifying in front of Congress, right? They're testifying under oath in front of Congress that these things are happening. They're being seen. They're witnessing them. They're reporting them. They're getting nowhere with it. If they're opening their mouth, the very system that is designed to allow them to come forward and be a whistleblower is the very same system that is keeping them from being able to talk about any of it unless they go into a secured, they call them a SCIF, a secured location where everybody that's going to be in that location to hear what the one gentleman is going to say has to be cleared in order to be able to hear the stuff that the guy that has clearance is going to say. So it seems like it's become a circus of sorts.
A bit of a circus. Now, they did extend the deadline for disclosure to September 30, 25. This is, again, pre-recorded. So I wonder what's going to happen. Are they going to do it?
Well,
the UAP 30th, records deadline.
September 30th.
That's come and go. It's gone.
At the time of this recording, even though we're doing this in
we're saying Merry Christmas, but it's pre-Merry Christmas.
Where is it? Where is it? And this last congressional, I did a brief episode, about a half hour, 40 minutes, just about 2 weeks ago on the latest congressional hearing that was held September 9th. And, okay, so they had it. And there were no, like in 2023, you had David Grush, who literally sat there and said he has knowledge of crash retrieval. He has knowledge of biologics that were collected from the crash retrievals. Those are all pretty heavy bombs, right? That's some like, what?
Yeah.
Seriously. This time around, and he's credited with opening the door for this other congressional hearing that happened on the 9th. There was a much different tone to that conference or that hearing. And it was, they had a lawyer there who was there, one of the speakers, one of the whistleblowers, I guess you'd say, and his job, his point of talking was that we have to provide better protections for the people that want to come forward to tell their stories. So that in itself is kind of not exciting, right? Nobody
we
wants to hear
talk about the deep undergrounds of what happens to people who are whistleblowers. Do they really have an quote unquote accident? And, when Muamua came around last time, didn't we have another government shutdown at that point? And now Atlas is coming, and we're having another government shutdown.
Not certain. It might have been.
What, are they doing some sort of look over here while they're doing this over there?
Well, they're absolutely doing look over here. Whether it's got anything to do with some giant asteroid flying through space, coming to take us out or bypass us and hit Mars, or whatever the newest story is. I mean, there's obviously look over here because we don't want you to see this. And, I have some strong opinions on what they're not wanting us to look at right now. So if all you have to do is really listen to some U.S. news, and you probably know what they're talking about. But
I don't know if you've ever seen the program Wag the Dog, where they talk about, how media changes things. And, they had AI, movies had AI. Were they using that to the public? Are they using it now? People look at stuff and they go, yeah, right. Baloney.
Well, if you want to know the truth of the matter, all you have to do is do a little bit of simple research on your own, on your own time on the internet, and you need to find out who owns the media companies in the world. And you'll be surprised when you find out who owns those media companies and what other hands they have in other bags or bowls throughout everything else. So, it's frustrating for sure.
Yes.
I've been obsessed with UFOs since I was 5. I have been waiting for disclosure for 55 years.
I think a lot of people have. And I know, did you see that one that they put on, Netflix, Storm Area 51?
Yeah.
And then the military came out and they threatened everybody. Nobody, it was just a party that fizzled out, basically, right? What if we really did do something like that? Can you imagine? Would they actually shoot us? They probably would.
Hell yes. Absolutely, they would.
100%. The signs are there. So, enter at your own risk.
I would have no doubt about that.
And then we got, Project Fear going in, trying to look and see what they can see. But, what are you going to get from a lens that's only with certain capacity number of miles? And then you got all these people doing the CE5 stuff on Beyond Skinwalker. What are your thoughts about that? They actually put the EEGs on their head, and they could see alpha kicking in the frontal lobe with a 1.6 gigahertz. What the heck is that all about?
I've done a couple of episodes with a couple of members from Project Psi, which was founded by a scientist in Chicago, I believe it was. Sherilyn Carter and Archbishop Christina Rake have both been on my shows, and we've talked about their involvement with that. And I believe it was Christina Rake was the first person to actually sit there with a cap on her head where the probes were put in, and they were able to, in real time, witness the changes in her brain as she was going into certain
different states. So basically it's almost like a state that a Buddha would get into.
Yeah. And I think that there is something compelling about it. I think there's something legitimate to it. Remote viewing, the United States government, anyway, they funded remote viewing in this country for over 20 years.
Yep.
Excuse me.
Yeah, you go back, you're talking about the high strangeness. There's all this MK Ultra and all this weirdness that they did way back when.
Yeah.
This goes back years and years. And the technology that we're seeing now, is it tech from downed aircraft, or is it our tech?
Unfortunately, I think that it's probably our tech.
Yeah, because there's tech that's that's used by the military for years and years before it comes out for the public to actually be able to use. Mm-hmm. Before the cell phone came out, what do you think they were doing on special ops? They were using the cell phone to send pictures and blah, blah, blah. Sure. There's all kinds of technology that's out there that we don't even know about.
Yep.
We're really high advanced. That stuff, we've got Space Force. Is that us up there with all the orbs?
Well,
and it's 1.6, which is Earth to space, right?
Well, that's an interesting point that you bring up. about the Space Force, because the first time I heard about Space Force, I thought it was a joke.
No, it's real.
No, I know. But when you use the term Space Force,
sounds like a farce, right?
It sounds
cartoony.
It sounds silly.
Yeah.
Because unless you had personnel, unless you had vehicles that were capable of being in space, then it seems kind of like a stupid way to name a military segment, right? I mean,
right.
if we're to believe that all this is these are people in charge of keeping space safe and keeping our satellites in operating order and not being threatened by other satellites, and that it just seems, if you're going to have a space force, all of our other militaries have weapons. They're either heavy on the water side, where you've got aircraft carriers and air support, or you've got Marines and GIs that are going in and doing the groundwork and the grunts and mobile infantry and stuff like that. So when you use the term Space Force with me, that makes me think that there's got to be something that
let's think about this. Look at our climate. The climate change is shit, okay? And everything is going, everybody want to say, oh, we're going to hell in a handbasket. Everybody's saying it. Something's coming, right? Yep. We got famine. We can't feed everybody. The earth is losing our atmosphere. Maybe that's why the veil is so thin, right? Why are we getting so many geomagnetic storms? Everybody can see the aurora borealis. That's not normal.
Right.
Our lakes here are drying up. People's wells are drying up. We have so many fires. It's all over the world. Are we in times? Is that why we have a Space Force? Is that why SpaceX wants to go to Mars? Because we're looking for somewhere else to go populate the human race?
Or are we getting close to a pole shift?
Yes.
if
Guaranteed. They've already desensitized us with all of those pole shift movies. Look at the movie 2012. Mm-hmm. That's what they do. They say, we're talking about high strangeness. Well, that's what government does. They put out a movie to see how are the people going to react now if this happens. And now we're like, okay, yeah, that's normal now for a pole shift. Mm-hmm. We know what it is. We know what to expect. We're all effed. Unless you get off the planet or got a good airplane with a lot of fuel.
And what do you think the chances are that the majority of us are going to get it right on those?
I don't know, man. Is it going to be like a biblical event? Like was that, people talk about, we're going back full circle again. We're going back to Eric von Daniken and the Bible and everything else. Like, was there a big flood? Did somebody who told mankind about it?
Yeah.
How did we survive?
I think there's enough evidence to show that there was a big flood.
100%.
I think there's evidence to show that there's been multiple floods.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that the
world is cyclical, right? We've had the dinosaurs.
And I think there's enough evidence for myself to entertain the fact that there have been multiple resets of humanity all along.
Yes. And is that why we're seeing the orbs? Because they're coming to watch the show. Oh, this planet's screwed. Let's go watch the show. Or maybe let's go help them. What do you think?
Boy, my opinions on that have changed so much over the years. I'm firmly in the camp now that if there is an extraterrestrial race, if we are being visited, I used to always think that it only made sense that they were coming here from somewhere, whether they were traversing vast distances with, warp drives or, some anti-gravitic propulsion or whatever. In the past few years, I think that my mind has kind of switched to, it makes more sense that these things are in the same, they're not in the same, and I hate saying this out loud because it makes me sound like an absolute wackadoo, but different dimensions.
You know what? You don't sound like an absolute wackadoo when you talk about different dimensions. Maybe we do have portals.
I think these things.
Why does Bigfoot always have an orb stuck next to him? What's up with that?
I think these things are here with us. I think they're always around, and
they could be USOs from the water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I mean, there's significant accounts of things coming out of the water.
We haven't been down there. I know we've got the SLAM scans, LiDAR and all that, mm-hmm. and we can see, and they say, oh yeah, SLAM scan it, we can see the bottom. No, we can't see everything down there.
No. No, you can get a topographical outlook of what it looks like, but I doubt that it's scanning and showing everything that's down there. So, what are these things? I think they're here with us, and for whatever reason, either the conditions are right or they have the ability to. I think that it points.
Well, you talked about the veil. I've got to go back to that, and I've got to go back to your Fab-5, JJRose777. She's going to come on, and we're going to talk about the veil getting thinner. Mm-hmm. That's a thing. I really think that it is.
I think, no disrespect to JJ, and everybody has their own opinions, but where she says the veil is thinning, I tend to think more that we are becoming more enlightened. For some reason, we are becoming more in tune.
There's a lot of guests I'm having on are talking about enlightenment, Eric. Yeah. A lot more people are talking about it.
But here's the thing, like from the standpoint,
is it because of the portals? Are you saying?
I've never seen a portal, and I think that it's
dimensions. So when I say portal, I mean dimensions. That's what I mean.
I do think, because when you look at the human condition, we only see in certain frequency of light.
Yes,
we can only see certain frequencies.
Shout out to Charles Chucky Danger, Charles Stevens. He talks a lot about the different frequencies and the different spectrums of light. We mm-hmm. can only see, just like you said, look at this tree. There's only a couple of spectrums that humans can see, right? Yeah. So there's so many other, like bugs can see, cats, we don't have this stuff behind our eyes. We don't have eye shine. We don't have that ability. But right. Can you imagine if we could see like a bug?
Yeah. I mean, hearing's the same way. We can only hear certain tones, so there are
elephants use infrasound in their feet to talk to each other through the ground. We're only now starting to understand infrasound. Birds, they use the electrical impulses and stuff like that for migration. Can you imagine if we could do all of that stuff?
Right.
And unlock what's in our frontal lobe of our brain.
Right.
Are we unlocking it? Is that why we're seeing it tracked on those people who seem to be able to access those dimensions?
I don't know. I guess that depends on, do you use fluoride when you brush your teeth? Is your pineal gland
do you want to talk about that for the people who don't understand what that means and why am I laughing?
Well, so the pineal gland, which it's a bad name. It sounds like a dirty thing, but it's supposed to be.
Sounds like a pine cone, right? Little tiny thing.
It's supposed to be this gland that is basically in the middle of your brain, which points towards the center of your forehead. Arguments have been made that different cultures have said that the pineal gland is the third eye,
Right.
and that throughout the generations of modern human, and especially since the advent of chemicals and different drugs and medicines and things, that humans' pineal gland has been calcified.
Yeah, it's shriveled up. And then when you're a kid, it's nice and plump and healthy.
Yeah,
that's why they're like, Daddy, I see a ghost. We're like, no, you don't. Because ours is all shriveled
isn't that
up.
strange that would be right where the soft spot of the head is?
Yeah.
And it doesn't grow together until
before it closes.
years.
Yeah.
So that's always been something that has kind of fascinated me, that because it is extremely common to hear about kids having experiences, seeing things that aren't there. And I mean, just think to your own self, if you ever had a child that when they were young had an imaginary play friend, especially if it was one that stuck around,
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, this world is full of some strange stuff, man.
Yeah, we haven't even got into talking about ghosties yet, have we? What's your theory on them? Do you have any experiences yourself?
Oh yeah, too many to get into here, but the most impressive ones were very pointedly my dad. After he passed, he was killed in a car accident.
I'm sorry, Eric.
That was just a long time ago. Thank you. But it started about 9 months after that, and it went on for a while. Not 8, 10, 12 months, maybe at the most.
He was visiting you?
Yep. Yep. Very, very, very much pointed to things that were between him and I. And it was never scary. It was never, oh my God, what was that? It was unique, I think is the best way to put it, because it was a very personal thing. But what I found to be odd about it was when it stopped cold. Not another experience.
And how long did you say it happened for?
It was in the neighborhood of 9 to 12 months, somewhere in there.
And at the 9 to 12 month mark, was that when your heart kind of was healed? Is that why it disappeared?
I don't know that. I mean, it seemed like it just ran its course. That's my gut feeling on it. Now, what does that mean? I have no idea. Does that mean that they only have a certain amount of time that they come back? Is there a certain amount of time that it took for him to realize that I was going to be okay, and he was able to move on? I don't know. And quite honestly, for some people, and this is kind of why I got out of doing the ghost investigations and stuff like that. I do agree with some of the investigators who say that there's some things you shouldn't dabble with, and I agree with that. And I've never dabbled with that, and I refuse to entertain the idea of dabbling with that. But I do think that there is a healthy perspective on having a visit, or something, whether it's your grandmother shows up, the night that she dies, you have a dream about your grandmother. We're all connected in various ways. And is that a coincidence? Is it something that was prompted because of her death, that you had a dream that was kind of a way of letting you know that it happened before you even heard? I don't know.
What kind of visits were they? Were they physical touch or?
No. Long and short of probably the most prevalent one is I had bought him a Mariner's crucifix the July before he was killed. And he was hit, killed. I got all his belongings from the hospital. And the Mariner's crucifix was one of the things that I got back. So I washed it off. I started wearing it and wore it all the time. Well, because of the thin rope that the crucifix was on, it was getting snagged on blankets and sweaters and clothes and stuff, and it was just getting kind of ratted up. So I decided to get a new chain for it. And shortly after doing that, I decided to start taking better care of it. So I would take it off when I'd shower. I'd take it off at bed, and I'd just put it on in the morning. So I took it off to take a shower, and took my shower, got done, toweled off, and I went to look for that. It was on the kitchen sink, which was a decent size sink. I mean, there was countertop, decent amount of countertop. It was gone. I immediately thought that it got hooked on the terry cloth towel. Started looking on the towel. It wasn't on there. Thought it got knocked off onto the carpet. Started retracing my steps from where I was in the house to where I came to the bathroom to take the shower to begin with. And then finally I was like, shit, it probably got knocked down the sink drain.
Right,
so
right.
Took a wrench. I took the gooseneck off the wrench with a wrench, and it wasn't in there. And I was like, well, shit.
Where'd it go, right?
And so at the time, my mom had moved out.
Okay.
She was much like people when they have a divorce, you kind of, once that freedom of being married for 20 some years was gone, she just kind of decided to go, not to make my mom sound like she was a hussy or anything, but she went and kind of started sowing her oats a little bit. I continued to live in the house, and quite a while went by. I don't know, maybe the next summer, I had closed the door to my mom and dad's bedroom because I wasn't ready to deal with the pictures of us on vacation, and I didn't want to see my dad. I didn't want to deal with the emotional side of that. So I was getting ready to go out on a date. I put on my best pair of jeans or khakis or whatever they were, and I wanted to wear my white button-down shirt because I had a really nice tan going at the time. I buttoned the top button up, and the button fell off, and I was like, shit. So I knew my mom had a sewing kit, and it was under the bed in my mom and dad's bedroom. Well, I really wanted to wear the shirt, so I walked down the hallway, got to the door, and I opened the door and immediately saw a picture on the nightstand of my dad and I on vacation in Traverse City, Michigan, and kind of got hit with the feels. It was emotional, but it was better than what I was expecting. So I, took a deep breath, and I said, I can do this. So I went in, I sat down on the edge of the bed, I reached underneath it, pulled out the old cookie tin that my mom kept all of her sewing stuff in, and opened it up, found a needle and a thread. And I looked up in the mirror that was in front of me, and the reflection from behind the wall behind me was my dad's military picture. And it was an old black and white photograph, but back in the day, in the 50s, they would kind of use soft pastels to kind of colorize it a little bit. And
yeah, it's almost like yellowish.
So I'm looking in the mirror, and I see his military picture looking over my shoulder at me, and I was kind of like, it kind of gave me a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. So that I kind of stopped what I was doing. I started looking around the room. I was looking at other pictures, and it was good. It was a cathartic moment. I was able to remember a lot of the good things, and it was good. My mom always used to get mad at my dad because he never used a coaster. Ever. And a lot of times he would go
coffee stains everywhere.
A lot of times he'd go to bed with a glass of ice water, or he'd have a leftover some Coke in a glass and ice in it. And then he would leave it on this end table. And she was always constantly bitching about him leaving a white ring on that coffee table. So all that to say, I sew the button back on, and I put everything back in the sewing kit and was getting ready to put it back underneath the bed. And I looked over at that end table, that bedside table that had the picture of me and my dad on vacation in Traverse City. And on the top of it, to the left of the picture, was a white ring. And in that white ring, it was wet.
Oh.
And sitting in that partial ring was the Mariner's crucifix and the chain.
What?
Yeah.
And it was wet.
Yeah. It was wet, like a sweaty glass had been sitting there.
Hmm.
I mean, it wasn't soaked.
Explain that one.
But it was damp.
Dad was there with you.
And
he helped you find it, and he said, here it is.
You know, and there's like I said, my mom had moved out. I never went into that room. There's no possible reason why that crucifix should have been where it was.
Wow.
And months had gone by. So
that made you feel good inside, right?
And it made me feel good, and I literally, I said out loud, I said, all right, I get it.
Was this around the 9 or 12 month mark?
I mean, it would be a guess for me. Yeah. I don't know.
Is that when things stopped happening after you found it?
No.
Okay.
There were, at the time I was dating a woman who I was going to end up marrying. At the time I was a bouncer in a bar. She decided to stay home instead of coming down to the bar. I called her up and I said, hey, are you going to come down tonight or not? And she said, no, I'm just sitting here listening to the symphony playing in the kitchen. And I was like, what are you talking about? And it was literally, she said it sounded like the shelves in the kitchen, every pot and pan had been either the shelves broke or somebody just pushed all the pots and pans. And then she went in the kitchen and she opened up the cupboards, and everything was stacked nice and neat and nothing had been moved. But she said it sounded like all of the pots and pans had just gotten pushed off the table. Another time I had, we were having an argument, and she was complaining about how I did laundry.
Okay.
And, I mean, I'm a guy, I'm 20 some years old, and I'm like, not a pro at doing laundry, but I knew how to put stuff in a washer and take it out.
Right. Yeah.
So I went downstairs to take laundry. She was going to take a shower. I took stuff down to the basement to do the laundry. Right. The phone rang. So the phone rings. I come upstairs and it's my mom. So I sat and talked to my mom for about 5 minutes or whatever it was. Went back downstairs to separate the laundry, and it's like a ranch style house. So it had a long wall down the middle of the basement. One side was finished, one side was utility. And every piece of clothing had been pulled out of that basket, and half of it was strewn across the finished side of the basement, and half of it was strewn against the utility side. And what? I immediately got pissed. I stormed back upstairs and I pounded on the bathroom door and I opened it, and then I started, why the hell you got to keep doing this? I mean, Jesus Christ, it's just laundry. Why has it got to be such an issue for you? And blah, 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 on and on. And she pulls back the curtain and she looks out the shower and she's like, I've been taking a shower. What are you talking about? And I was like, oh,
whoops.
shit.
You're like, whoops.
And she did. She had told me she was going to take a shower. So when the phone rang and I went up to talk to my mom, she was already in the shower. I could hear it running.
Right.
So we didn't have any dogs. We didn't have any cats. We didn't have, it's a brick house. It's not like we had critters coming in and.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Was something in the basket or?
There was absolutely no reason for it.
Okay. Weird.
Another thing quickly was,
your dad was looking for a shirt or something?
I don't know, either that or just wanting to be noticed.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
At the same time, before she started living with me here, at a neighborhood friend who was having some problems with his mom, she was kind of starting getting early dementia.
Oh.
And he says, man, I can't keep living here. He's like, can I come stay at your place for a while? And I said, yeah, I mean, I don't know how long, but yeah, you can. I mean, we got plenty of room. So he moved in. I was still working at the bar. I got up on a Sunday morning, and I had to go to Grand Rapids, Michigan, because the bar that I worked at required us to take it was a techniques and alcohol management course.
Oh.
It was called TAM. And I had to go up there and I had to do hours of classroom stuff, and then came back home and he was gone. He moved out. He never said anything. He just packed his crap and he moved out.
Huh.
I went and talked to his mom, and he wasn't living there either. So
where'd he go?
Eventually we have the conversation, because I came home one night from the bar.
We're at the 57-minute mark.
All right. I come home from the bar and he's sitting in the couch, and he has my gun pulled out from underneath the couch, and it's sitting on the arm of the couch.
Ooh.
And I said, hey, what the hell's going on here? I'm like, you hang out with some stupid people. I said, I was making assumptions that he was, people were coming to my house now looking for him, or he was, selling pot or whatever it was.
Uh-oh.
And he says, he's like, and every light in the house was on. Every light. When I pulled up,
he was scared.
And he said, around midnight, I heard you come home. You walked in the kitchen. I said, hey man, you're home early tonight. And he didn't answer me. And he says, I looked over to the corner where the kitchen meets the living room. And he said, I saw a dark figure, smoky, that walked out of the kitchen, walked down the hallway, and walked right through the door of your mom and dad's bedroom.
That was your dad. He was looking out for you. He was a stranger in the house.
And that was it. That's all he could take. He moved out that next day, and he literally went and moved into a summer cottage that his mom still had no insulation or anything. It was literally a summer cottage.
So he had a hard time.
And he lived there during the winter because he couldn't deal with it. So.
Wow. That's a story. We'll have to have another episode with you on it and talk about that. I've got to give a shout out to all your Fab-5. Do you want to start doing some shout outs on where people can find you? And
it's Uncomfortable Podcast. You can find me anywhere you can get podcasts. It's lowercase u with an uppercase N and the word comfortable. I'm Spotify, Apple, iHeart. Good Lord. I mean, it's just an endless list. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find Uncomfortable.
And I'll put up your link tree in a bit. Do you want to give a shout out to your crew?
As far as my crew, you mean
the fantastic Fab-5?
Oh,
we gotta give a shout out to Kat Ward on UPRN. Tim is also Sudano on UPRN. Tommy Cullum, Let's Get Freaky. Kat is with Paranormal Heart, and Tim is with Paranormal Insight. And we got JJRose777 and yourself. How did you all come about? I know we're at the 60-minute mark. We only got a few seconds left.
Just a collective of friendly people that have common interests, and we just got along really well. And I don't even remember whose idea it was to start calling themselves that, but we've done a few things, worked together several times, and just a great group of people.
Well, Erick, thanks so much for being on the show today. You can see Erick's link tree in the ticker down there. Check it out. Follow Erick on all of his socials and subscribe to all of his stuff that he's got going on here. And Erick, I want to wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas.
You as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you being on the show tonight.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Erick. So we're going to leave now with a little bit of Bog Team music, Boots on the Ground team over here in Newfoundland, Labrador, and you're listening in on UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 on that Gulf Coast.